Alrighty, so welcome back. We're still working on classwork, so in your notes you got an X major heading, right? So MyITlab. So MyITlab, as I've talked about, is an important part of this course. It represents how much of your grade? Question is, do you remember? 30%. If you don't, go to Syllabus, you can see that in there. So what I'll do in this video is I'm going to walk you through how to set up your MyITlab accounts, how it's going to work, and just what work we're going to be doing in MyITlab. You'll see this more as we get into the course. And so let's go ahead and turn to the screen and get started. So in this case, I'll go ahead and drop out. So in our course, right, the first thing you hopefully already know, I've covered this in the welcome message, but you will need the MyITlab, right, at the end of, not week 1, not week 2, but in this case, the end of week 2, the beginning of week 3. So the thing I don't really like about the fact that there's two systems. Okay, so let me just say this. So there is a MyITlab system that you'll log into and register, and then there's the Blackboard system. So what will happen is I will have to manually export grades from MyITlab and import them into Blackboard. My goal is to do this at least several times a week, if not more, depending on, you know, students' requests and what I see happening. Generally, it's as we get closer to a due date, that's when it's really important to know, you know, you want to see what's in Blackboard so that you can see what happens, okay? So in this case, I just want you to know there's two separate systems. So having said that, one thing that is kind of, you know, just the way it works here is that in Blackboard, when you're looking at the calendar, hopefully you're getting used to this now, what you will see is when you click on an item that is a MyITlab item, it won't take you to the item. You won't even see this. It just won't, it'll just list it. So in your notes, I want you to say this. Whenever I see Word, Excel, okay, Access, or the final, right, or the lab test. Okay, so that's actually good. So in our notes, in MyITlab, the things that you will get graded on is the Word assessments. Matter of fact, you can see that here, right? So it's the Word assessments. I'll show you in a minute how to find that. It is the Excel assessments, the Access assessments, the lab test for Word, Excel, and Access, and the final. Okay, so those are the things that are in MyITlab that I take the grades and I place them in Blackboard. Okay, so when you complete them, you may not see them show up until the following day or maybe a day or so. But if it's important to you to understand the impact of those items, you know, be on the class chat, which you will learn about in a little bit what that means. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to hit cancel because I'm going to actually go to the MyITlab in Blackboard. So there's a couple things here. You're first going to have to register for MyITlab, and this number right here is the course that you will tell MyITlab that will correspond to this course so that the systems know and we're sure you're in the right one. So don't copy and paste or type this in, because what you'll need to do is in your Blackboard account go in and get your number. Each section, right, so I have multiple sections of this CIT 15 have multiple or different numbers here. Okay, so but for purposes, right, so you could, although I think I'm not going to be able to register him, you could copy that. So the first thing you'll do is register. Okay, so you'll need three things. Email, which in this case I'd recommend you using your campus email address. You need a course ID, which I just showed you how to get in here, right? Again, copy and paste that. And you'll need an access code or a credit card. Okay, so this is where if you bought it in the bookstore, you will have an access code that you'll use on the next step. If you're buying it online, then this is where you would use the credit card to buy online. And I've covered the benefits of doing that, but here's what you can know. MyITlab is less if you buy it through the publisher because you don't get a hard copy. Okay, but other than that, it works the same. So let's go ahead and go back here, and then we'll see this right here is that Office 2013, and then in here what you will do is copy and paste that course. Okay, you will then copy and paste the course that I've told you. You'll hit continue, right, and this is where you will either sign in if you have taken 15s before, but most likely what you will do is create an account. Okay, so you will create an account in in MyITlab for you, right? So you'll have to create this account. So what you'll do here is you'll use your email account. I recommend the campus email account. I recommend actually using your username as your student ID number here. You have a password which you can make up, and the rest of it seems pretty straightforward, hopefully. Okay, so once you do that, then you will get access to the MyITlab. Okay, so let me just show you. So step 1, get access. Step 2 is log in. Now, when you're going through the process, you'll get that option as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and click in because I've already created an account. I created an account with my this account right here. Okay. Now again, this is after you've created that. And by the way, when you go through that process, you do get the option of, and let me just tell you this, a 14-day trial. So if you select that 14-day trial, it gives you 14 days to get in and, you know, get into MyITlab, but you got to make sure you convert that. As a matter of fact, you can see in the way I've already set these up that they show me right here that these are temporary accesses. Okay, so if that's the case for you, make sure you convert that before the expiration date so that you don't lose the work that you've done. So 14 days is great, but make sure you convert it. So here you can see that course ID that I showed you, and now I'm just going to click in. Now when you do this, you will only see one course, so no big deal here. Okay, so when you come in, you will get this welcome getting started. So 99% of the time, here's the only thing you'll need to do is go to course materials. Okay, so course materials is where all of our stuff is located. Now by the way, before I get started in here, did you notice that CIT, this section, this should match whatever you have in Blackboard? Okay, so again, this should match whatever you are the section you are in Blackboard. All right, so we have, here are the items. Here's the course material in MyITlab that you will need to you will work on. So the first is just the materials, and really this is just the textbook, okay, and the PowerPoints for the textbook. So these are nice to have, and I show this in the chapter quizzes so you know how to get in and use that, okay. So here's the deal. We have Word, Excel, Access, again PowerPoint's here, but I don't have that included in your Blackboard grade, so you can complete it, but it's not part of your grade. I recommend it. And then we have the exams, right? So I told you to list in your notes, you have assessments for Word, Excel, Access, and then you have lab test, and by the way, you will also have the final in MyITlab. Okay, so let's go into Word. So inside of Word, you have a training and you have an assessment. The assessment is the graded item that will then, whatever you get, and by the way, in this case I believe I have it set up to capture the highest attempt, so I do allow you to take multiple attempts of the assessment, but the highest one will be the one that flows into your Blackboard gradebook. Trainings are not required, but you will hear about reasons you would want to complete trainings when I come to an item lower down in this series talking about late grades and how you can get points back for items completed late. Okay? So what you can see here is we have 4 assessments, and those will correspond to what you have in the Blackboard calendar, right? So here's the first item, and I just went and played around to see what it looked like. So in my first one. So I'm going to go ahead, though, and take this again just to show you basically how you do this. You come in here, and it will pop up. So in the first thing, so in your notes, put, you know, you have to make sure you have a pop-up blocker, and there is some setup that MyITlab will give you so that you hopefully will have your computer ready to go. So here's the steps you need to take, right? So for this first question, there's 17 questions. For this first one, here are all the steps. So there's multiple steps for each question. There's learning aids, which is awesome. So learning aids give you either to watch how to do it or you can practice how to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and do it so you can just see the first one, right? So I happen to know I'm not going to have to do this. Let me click off the learning aids. I'll come over here. I'll start Word. So it says start and begin a blank document. So notice as I do that, it then moves to the second question. So I'm going to do an insert, and you go here. So you might be wondering at this point, well, wait a minute, what if I don't know how to do that? Well, that's exactly what the learning aids do. It will walk you through practice, show you how the step-by-step, or you can watch how to do it, or you can read about it, either of those things. But once you go through those, then you'll have to come back and do it here. So I did that step, so now it wants me to save the file. So I go ahead and hit save in my documents, and it wants me to give it a particular name. So I'll do that. I'll say W01H1 Refuge. Cool. So I'll hit save. And now I have to close the document. Now, until I do that last step, I don't get that item complete and get taken to the next question. So by the way, notice there's how many attempts for each one. So you can also look at which ones you've done here. So here we have correct, I haven't completed this one, and these I haven't attempted. So if you're, and you can save this and come back for later. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm just going to hit save. Okay. So in your notes, right, so you can take the assessment multiple times. The highest grade will be the one that shows up in Blackboard for the attempts that you've taken before the due date. Now once the due date passes, and you'll learn this later on, I will put a 0 in gradebook. You can complete them late, they're just as a penalty. Okay. So once we get through all of the 4 items, right, so the other thing is you might want to look at here is in the syllabus, right, go look at the schedule for the course, and you can see when the MyITlab items come up right here in tentative schedule. So you can see that they show up every Monday after, right, the first week. So it's really at the on the 31st. In this case, you can see this calendar here, right? And again, I use the Blackboard calendar, but just to see the MyITlab, it shows up on each Monday from the week 2 all the way through week 16. So that's what you can know, is those items will be there. All right. All right, so once we get through all the Word, then what you will have is you will have a lab exam. So the exam here, right, if you come in here, then you will have a lab exam. So the lab exam really is where you will need to have Microsoft Office, and I talked about how to get Office, so you can do that. You can get it for free, right? So I want you to know that. So here are the 3 lab exams for Word, Excel, and Access. So I'm going to show you these work differently. In order to do the lab test, you actually have to have the full Microsoft Office. In the past, in the assessments that we were doing, this was actually simulating, acting like Microsoft Office. But in the lab test, and make sure this goes in your notes, you actually have to have Microsoft Office to complete the work. So what you do is you download some files, right? So I'm just going to download a zip file here. There we go. So I downloaded a zip file, and if you've never done this, what you would do is extract all the files before you get started. I do recommend, if you have a USB, use a USB to copy these on. So what you have is a starting document, and you have instruction. So the starting document is basically just that. Starts here. You do all these steps, and we'll just open this up so you can we can take a quick look at it. Okay. So you can see here. We have, let's see how many steps, 18 steps. You can see how much each item is worth. Let me just kind of expand this just a little bit. Oh, that's right, I'm in Word, so I have to do View. I can't do what I do in the browser. There we go. So you can see how many items and how much each one is worth. And then the last thing you'll do is submit that file. Okay, so you'll do all this, and then I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You will do it to this file. You will do all the instruction to apply it to this file, and then when you're done, you would come over here and upload that completed file. Okay, so you choose that and upload it. All right, so in your notes, right, so the assessments are simulations. The lab tests are actually where you need Microsoft Office. The other thing that we do in MyITlab, and we're getting close to the end of this video, is you actually will take the final. Okay, so the chapter quizzes that I'll talk about in a little bit, those will be in Blackboard, but when we get to the final, which is 5% of your grade, you'll take that in MyITlab, and I'll have it accessible. Let's see if I can get back here real quick. I'll have it accessible from in this exams. So you will see, I don't have it up here right now, but when I do, oh, that's right, you're not seeing it, but sorry, when I do have it available, you'll see it show up in exams. Okay, so hopefully that gives you kind of the basics, but here's what I want you to also know is MyITlab is your first line of support. I have put in Blackboard also under MyITlab some support information so you can contact them. And the other thing you might definitely want to make sure you do here is go through and just type in browser MyITlab, and under MyITlab what you would do is go through and look at support, because support will help you walk through the process. Here we go, last thing I'll do, of setting up your computer, and that's a really important part to make sure your computer's ready to go. Okay? All right, talk to you later.